Hey, dude. This is a TVZ. The big question from the email is roach infestor. What do you do? And that has a different answer than this game. What do you do? Because you lost this game because you never took a third. You lost this game because you didn't spread your marines, and infestors killed infinity marines with a couple fungals. I think you actually, I mean, you had a much bigger army, and once the infestors, I mean, there were only 4 infestors. Once the infestors were out of energy, the game was kind of yours, except for that you'd lost all your marines to those fungals. So really the problem was just how many marines you had standing in a giant ball, on top of the fact that you just never even tried to get your third. But other than those 2 very large but very simple mistakes, you did really good things. Good things. So this is your good old-fashioned 2-Rex pressure opening. You didn't... Looks like you thought the Zerg was over there. So I don't... Is Ling Speed already done? No, he's not even going to get Ling Speed, so that's cool. That means you can dance around and do whatever you want. So when you see this amount of Lings, I think you saw this before you even got there with your dudes. Like with your scouting SCV. Let's see. It's also really important. It's easy with a pressure opening like this to forget to make workers. So I'm going to stop it at 6 minutes to see how that went. Alright, now you see a billion zillion Lings. And this guy hasn't shot his gun at all yet, and he's in melee range of the Lings. That's terrible. That's very bad. Gotta watch for that. Perfect. Good job with your workers, though. Notice how he's got 16 workers and you got 24, and you're starting your second command center. You've gained the advantage already just by having him make these Lings. So you don't need to fight, because Lings are great against Marines. He's got enough Lings to easily mop up your Marines. So always get an idea of what you're walking into, and don't walk into it if you have a choice. But also, when you engage melee units, it's really important. I mean, the way the game is designed, ranged units do less damage and have less health than melee units, because they get to shoot the melee units as the melee units are running in. So they get a short amount of time where they're shooting and the melee units aren't. So using the move command like you did, that's really bad, because it takes away your ranged unit advantage. So right here, for some reason, you did a move command up to here, and you shouldn't have. So see, your guys are moving? That's bad. That's bad, that's bad, that's bad. So you should have gone up with 1 Marine, put the rest of your Marines here. If you see nothing, then you can come back and sprint up and try to do some damage. But if you see a big pile of crap, then your guys are here, which is awesome, because the Lings have to go all the way around, and they can't get us around, and all sorts of good stuff. Anyway, what happens with that first drop is not really important, because first attack is not really important, because its whole job is to make him stop producing workers at 16, and it did that, so you did great. Now we're just gonna go. Also, you saw those Lings. When a Zerg has that many Lings, you should usually expect Banelings to eventually show up, because a bunch of Lings doing nothing is not something Zergs are typically comfortable with. So I'm sure your army size right now is ridiculously small, and that's part of the build. That's like what we're doing, is we're saying, you know, our bunkers are so scary no one's going to attack into them, but all the way down at 10 minutes you need at least $2,000 or $2,500 spent, and you've got 300 plus so about 1,500. So you got a pretty small army, and if he Baneling busted you, I think you would lose. Gotta keep an eye on that, man. But whatever, he didn't Baneling bust you, so I won't talk too much more about that. So these upgrades, you gotta start 1-1 at 9, and you gotta start 2-2 at 12, which means that you gotta start your armory in time to start 2-2, and you did. Let's, I believe you got the upgrades on time, but I'm just watching right now to check. Look at this income discrepancy. You have a huge income compared to the Zerg. All the way up to 60, which is max saturation on 2 bases, your income is just monstrously bigger than him. So you're getting this huge advantage. You're going to wait till 2-2, and you got a bunch of stuff, and then you're going to use your huge advantage to go win the whole game, right? Alright, so here's the problem. Because you guys are close by air positions, you floated this factory to scout, and you're going to do this drop. I don't dislike the drop, but you got to get your priorities straight. The whole point of this drop is to let him know you have drops and to provoke him to get something to defend against drops and to be scared of drops, so that when your big push comes, it does better. You can also use a drop to get his army out of position, because most people have their army all on one hotkey or two hotkeys. See how his whole army's on two? Actually, it's on three hotkeys, but he's got everything on one hotkey, and then he's also got two other hotkeys just in case. So you get the drop as soon as you see one ling, you pick up the drop and run away. So the drops can move his army out of position, and it can scare him to know that you have drops, but you're not going to get anything done once the army shows up. So you really want to get out of there before anything bad happens. Also, I tell Nick a lot never to break up your initial force, because right when this 2-2 finishes, you're going to have a really big, strong advantage in the game, and that's when you want the big fight to happen. So you want your entire army to be right here, spread out across this whole area, or right here, with him having vision of it and coming to try to knock you down, right when 2-2 finishes. So your drop did get mopped up, and now that it's mopped up, your whole army is in one place. So that's okay. But you just weakened your army by 8 Marines right before the big attack. You want the big attack to be as big as possible. Also, the command center, you need to start at like 13 or 12, and then float it as you push out. So, and you need to pre-clear the creep from these places by sending just a couple Marines over there, and clear the watchtower with like 2 Marines. And do a drop up here, or threaten a drop up here, but don't actually do it, just to clear the way so that you can get all the way to here before the fight starts. Because if he intercepts you here, then your guys are going to be all bunched up because they're moving, and that's no fun. Also, your mule energy is kind of high. Really, the whole game comes down to this push. It comes down to 15 minutes when these upgrades finish. So you really want to make sure that right at that very second, you have $0 in the bank, you have all your mule energy spent, and you have your dudes spread out and ready to go, and all that kind of stuff, and then go do your big push. So you're actually not going to do a big push, and you're not going to expand at all, and that's a huge mistake. I mean, you're just going to have all your dudes in a big pile right here, getting ready to push. You know, your 2-2's done, you got lots of medevacs, good times. Look at this. Your army should never look like this. And if you ever need to have it bunched up, like because it's walking across the field, you need to have scouts. You have to have send out a scout ahead of your army, send out a scout down here, send out a scout down here, so that you know that there's no interception coming. And then watch your army like a hawk, because if you ever have an army that can be hit, the entire army of yours can be hit by 2 fungals, that's really bad. Really bad, man. So look at army size wise, you've got equal sized armies, but you've got an upgrade advantage. He's got 1-0 versus 2-2. That's a huge upgrade advantage. You also have all those medevacs and Marines and everything. You could really easily win this fight, and we're gonna see that in just a second here. So that first drop kind of went bad. The fact that you didn't make an expo and aren't even trying to make an expo means that you're all in. And you don't want to be all in. This is a macro build. You're supposed to be expanding and expanding and expanding. So it sucks that you're all in. But if you're going to be all in, man. Do it. So right here, his teeny tiny smattering of lings is all going to die without doing any damage. Look at that. Look at that. So all the lings are now dead, and not a single Marine died. Your army can dominate his army. And it's just the fungal growth that's doing anything to you. So these fungals get huge amounts of kills, 12 kills, 20-something million zillion kills. So this fight's going to break even for you, but aside from the fungals, you won it. So you did probably 4,000 damage and took about 500 damage. Like, massive win with all your other units. But these infestors, I mean, the fungal growth caused some roaches to get kills and caused some lings to get kills. But if it weren't for those fungals, you just would have dominated that battle really big. And obviously, this is really bad. All of the stuff that keeps his infestors alive is dead now, so these infestors are dead now. Why aren't you killing them? Stim, chase, kill, you know? Concussion shells, a couple marauders, and stim. Those things combined means he'll never get away once the fight's over. Also, if we watch during this fight, I mean, that fight was the end of the game, basically. But if we watch during this fight, he's got 1-0 versus 2-2. That's a huge upgrade advantage. You can also use a drop to get his army out of position, because most people have their army all on one hotkey or two hotkeys. See how his whole army's on two hotkeys. So you can really easily win this fight, and we're going to see that in just a second here. So And you were way ahead at the beginning of that fight and way behind after that fight. And so really, that's all it came down to, baby. So sorry, imagine... There's a reason we put a tech lab on one and a reactor on the other. Imagine if you had 2 less medevacs and 2 more banshees. During this fight, where's his anti-air? He has no anti-air, so your banshees can kill all 5 of these ridiculously easily. And the only option he has is to either lose the infestors, run away and not even fight with the infestors, burrow the infestors and only get to use infested Terran, which wouldn't have done nearly as much AoE damage to you, or to waste his infestor energy on the banshees, fungal growth them 2 or 3 times while dropping infested Terrans and finishing them off. And that whole time that he's watching the banshees and fungal growth, wait a minute, fungal growth, wait a minute, drops them infested, fungal growth, you know, that kind of stuff, this fight's going on and all of his army is dead, and you have plenty of time to retreat some of your dudes, grab these guys, pull them back, grab these guys, pull them back, put a couple forward, you know, that kind of stuff. So the banshees would have just totally made this fight for you. Absolutely made the fight, baby, made the fight. So yeah. Next time, make banshees out of the guy that you specifically made a tech lab on so that you could make banshees. And next time, as this fight starts to come towards the end, grab a group of like 8 guys, stim and right-click on all the infestors, or shift-click on them all, so that those dudes just chase the infestors. Because these infestors have to die. If they don't have protection, they're so easy to kill. You just have to kill them. It's like it's blasphemy not to kill naked infestors. It's completely ridiculous. So now you're still about even on army. You're even on army size. You're even on workers. The reason that you're behind on economy is because you have 2 bases and your main is running dry. Remember, I've said repeatedly about 15 minutes is when your main runs dry, so if you don't have a 3rd by 15 minutes, the game is over unless you win pretty quick. So this lack of an expo is why you're going to lose from here on. But if it weren't for the lack of the expo, even though that battle went terribly for you, you'd still be even. You'd still be even on economy, even on army, ahead on upgrades, just totally fine. Yeah, Jack, yeah. So, I love the immediate follow-up, but I hate the commitment. Like, each roach is $100, each marine is each 2 marines is $100. This is like 25 roaches and 5 infestors. You aren't gonna kill this with 8 marines, so go in there and attack. And as soon as you count the number of roaches he has fighting you, either leave the marines to die and send the medevacs home, or send everybody home. One of those 2, because there's no need to lose a bunch of stuff around here. Luckily, he just kind of let you fly away, but if he had dropped like 2 infested Terran, you would have lost 5 or 6 medevacs in that fight, so that would have sucked. Here comes the medevacs back home. Your army size is teeny tiny, itsy bitsy baby weeby. When you have a very small army, you don't want it to be out in the open naked. You want it to be behind your bunkers. So start rallying back here after you've decided that this fight is lost. As soon as a fight ends, you've got to start thinking about the next fight. So the positioning of these marines is really silly. But at this point, the game's kind of over. And he's just like, roaches, meh. So roaches are really scary in a way that lings aren't. Because even though they're bad dollar for dollar against marines, like if you have enough marines and marauders and medevacs that you've spent exactly as much money on your army as he's spent on his, you'll win. Because roaches aren't very good matched up. But they're only 20% worse. So if he has 20% or more of an advantage in spending, he gets to win that fight, and then he gets to burrow and heal all the way back up to full, and then he gets to, you know, keep going. And they, because they're ranged, unlike lings, you can't really harass them as easily by picking up and dropping and hiding behind buildings and stuff. So really, if you ever face roach infestor, there's a requirement that either you have a ton of bunkers, or your army size always stays within 20% of his army size. Because if he ever gets more than 20% ahead, he just wins. And that's really frustrating because we like to do small army play. But all you got to do is have enough bunkers back home so that small army play that leaves you vulnerable is, you know, he still can't do anything because you got bunkers. at 20 minutes in not to be mining off your third is really big part of why you lost. So obviously, pre-spreading these Marines and not taking a third were the only two things that really mattered. I said other stuff about other things, and all that is valid, but none of it's nearly as important as those two things. So I'd just like to point out that at 15 minutes, you did a crazy good job with this build. I'm very impressed. You had a very reasonable army. Obviously, 9,000 is the benchmark, so let's go to 15 minutes and pause and see how close you were to the benchmark. Relative to your opponent, though, you were doing awesome. I don't know relative to benchmark. That's what I'm going to check now. Let's wait until the upgrades are done. Come on, baby. Alright, so right now you want $9,000, and you had 64 plus maybe 1,000 in these things, and turrets is another 500. And did you get blue flame? Probably not. So about 1,500. That's 8,000. So you're $1,000 below benchmark, but that's awesome, dude. Have an $8,000 army at this point. Look at the Zerg's army. It's like 4,000. It's ridiculously smaller than yours. So really good job. I was very impressed. If it wasn't for this fungal growth being so amazingly good right here, you would have easily won this game when you counter pushed. I want to watch this fight again because it's so sad. It makes me cry. Like, look at that. A big group here and a big group here died to fungal. Nothing else died until that first group was dead. Really, really sad to see fungal do so well. Yep. Bye.